because at the time they were still looking for a deckhand, and they had been trialing people while I had been there, and it wasn't working out. He pulls it up and he goes, "Oh shit, you speak Spanish?" I said, yeah. It's like, "Whoa, the owner's Spanish and nobody on board speaks Spanish, so let me go talk to the captain." He goes, "Oh, actually, do you want to be a deckhand?" I was like, "Look, I'll do whatever you want. Like, let's go talk to the captain." He shoots the CV up there. They come down, and thankfully, they immediately gave me a trial. Everyone already knew me. They already liked me. They're like, "All we have to do is make sure that you can actually, do the job." So I started trialing there for a week, and then after that, the boat was heading to was going to cross over to France and do the whole Mediterranean season. And yeah, that week went really well. They really liked me, and everything went good. And they're like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I basically moved in that Friday, and then a week later we were crossing the Atlantic, and then 2 weeks later we were arriving in France, and then everything just kind of snowballed from there.
Welcome to the Montclair podcast. Today we have Hugo Ortega. So Hugo is the founder of SuperYacht Sunday School, which is a platform to coach and to assist people that are trying to break into the yachting industry, as well as just improving their career within the industry. So it's a really awesome system that is founded, I think, just after COVID, and is here to talk about SuperYacht Sunday School with us, to talk about his career when he started as an engineer and how he broke into the yachting industry. He's now a captain, and he's going to tell us a lot about how he started from, first job on a yacht to becoming captain to now launching the SuperYacht Sunday School. So here's the episode with Hugo Ortega. Welcome to the Montclair podcast. This is Chris, your host. Today we have Hugo Ortega. Hugo, how are you?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me, man.
No problem. Pleasure. Hugo, I've seen you online doing your, what is it called? SuperYacht Sunday School, right? That's your business. It's your project.
Correct. SuperYacht Sunday School.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, if you were to introduce yourself, what would you say? Where are you from? Where did you grow up? How come you're here?
Yeah, so I grew up in New York City, and my story didn't start with yachts at all. I went to school. I went to be an engineer. I did that for a few years. Didn't really like it so much, and I knew that I wanted to travel. Like so many people, that's what I wanted to do, and that's the people that I help today. People that had a career that maybe they didn't like, or they hated, or maybe they weren't even good at. But just like me, I was traveling, and when I was in the middle of Southeast Asia, I just by chance bumped into someone that worked in yachting, and when I heard about their job, traveling through the Caribbean, riding jet skis, doing all this crazy shit, I was like, man, that spoke to me. That's what I want to do. And in the same way, that's what I'm trying to do now. Whenever someone is interested in changing their life and traveling and doing something completely different, they find me. They find SuperYacht Sunday School. They start getting into our content, start finding out about with the videos. Slowly and surely, they're like, oh shit, this is something I can do. Because we all have that feeling at the beginning. I was like, man, I can't do that. Like, I've never been on a boat. I've never done this. I didn't grow up on the water. But the guy who helped lead me in, he showed me what you had to do. And, if I followed some steps and I went through the whole process, and that's what I'm doing now. So this whole project, SuperYacht Sunday School, is just about connecting people that maybe they would have never found yachting. Maybe they would have found out about it, but not had that, that influence to actually go and do it. And now it's like that. I connect you. I take you from where you are right now to setting onto your first yacht. And it's been really, really exciting. And I love it. So I've been able to take my old background, which was engineering and liking tech, and kind of put that together with my experience of captaining and being officer on board, and now creating this platform that lets people go into yachting.
Awesome. I wanna touch back on your background before yachting. What was your goal studying engineering? Like, did you think you were gonna? What was the objective there?
Well, the reason that I started studying engineering, like I think so many people here in the U.S., we're told basically when we're kids, hey, you got to go to college. If you want to succeed, you want to make money, go to college. And when I got to college, I had a few things I was interested in, but all I really knew was that I was good at math and science. I'd always been really good at those subjects. And when you look at the catalog of all the courses, it's not exactly the most fun. Like I was looking at architecture and all these other things, but I kept falling back to, hey, if I'm really good at math and science, it looks like engineers make quite a good bit of money. You can graduate in 4 or 5 years, have a good degree, have a good job, good prospects. And I ended up going that way. Like I said, I was interested in in architecture, to be fair. And when I went to the open house, they were like, hey, you're going to have to be 100 hours in the studio. You might have to sleep in the corner of the room. And I was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not doing that. So I was like, the next best thing, I was like, oh, I'll just take the math and science and apply it to something else. So I went into engineering.
Yeah. So how did you start on yachts? Did you just, was it day working? Did you dock walk? What's the entry point for you? Because it's always a good story. There's always like, it's never easy to get into yachting, and the first job is always, I feel like, the hardest to get.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people too, that the finding a job in yachting is a full-time job. And that first one is always going to be the hardest one. So through the advice of my friend, I came to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I was looking for work. I got into a crew house. I was meeting all kinds of interesting characters. I had, one 50-year-old deckhand from South Africa. He'd been looking for a job forever. That kind of scared me because he had a lot of experience. I had another guy that had gotten a whole bunch of courses. He was this Canadian guy, also already had day work. And I was like, shit, man, people are spending a lot of money or they're spending a lot of time. Like, I don't really have either one. I had just been backpacking, and I think I had like $2,000 left in my pocket. I was like, I need to do this quickly. So I started doing some courses. I started meeting a lot of people. And for me, I didn't actually go dock walking at first. What I did was I was just trying to get really connected. So I would message people, hey, it was great meeting you. And I would just follow up, kind of treating it like sales calls, right? Like taking that corporate background and following up with people. And luckily, one of the guys that I had met in one of my courses, we had become really good friends. And I was just following up with him one day. This is about 2 weeks in. So I haven't found any day work. I've been, barking up all the trees, nothing. And I texted him out of the blue. I was like, hey, man, haven't caught up with you in a while. You got any day work? You know anybody that's looking for work? And he's like, hey, actually, our boat needs someone to come help paint the engine room. Like, can you be here? How fast can you be here? Basically, just immediately shot over to the marina that they were in. I started working with him and the engineer. We were preparing the whole room for getting painted. Anyway, we did that for about 1 week. And then the engineer says, hey, man, I really like you. I really like how you've been working. Like, we can tell you want to be here. But the problem is we only have enough spots now for one person. And since my friend had gotten me the day work, I was like, okay, well, it's only fair. I'll leave. He can stay here. And while they were doing that, he goes, actually, let me look at your CV one more time. Because at the time, they were still looking for a deckhand. And they had been trialing people while I had been there, and it wasn't working out. And he pulls it up, and he goes, oh, shit, you speak Spanish? And I said, yeah. He's like, whoa, the owner's Spanish, and nobody on board speaks Spanish. So let me go talk to the captain. He goes, oh, actually, do you want to be a deckhand? I was like, look, I'll do whatever you want. Like, let's go talk to the captain. He shoots the CV up there. They come down. And thankfully, they immediately gave me a trial. Everyone already knew me. They already liked me. They're like, all we have to do is make sure that you can actually, do the job. So I started trialing there for a week. And then after that, the boat was heading to was going to cross over to France and do the whole Mediterranean season. And that week went really well. They really liked me and everything went good. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And I basically moved in that Friday. And then a week later, we were crossing the Atlantic. And then 2 weeks later, we were arriving in France. And then, everything just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah. So that was your first boat. So how long did it take you to move from deckhand to the next position? Because if I'm right, you're a captain now, right?
Right.
So how long before between the first day and the first captain's job, just to get an idea, to get a perspective of how long it would take?
Well, I would say that took me quite a bit. So we're saying that from first you said from deckhand. So I started as deckhand. I worked 8 months on that yacht. And then on my next yacht, probably close to 6 months in is when I became lead hand. So that was probably, like somewhere before a year and a half in the industry.
Yeah.
I got bosun somewhere around 3 years in the industry. Probably around 4 years, I got second officer. And I probably didn't do my first captain gigs till 6 years in. I mean, full time. I was doing probably like 5 years in, doing some freelance 50-footers, 60-footers on the weekend. But six years in, I would say, before I got my first full time.
Yeah. What's the most surprising thing you found about yachting? Because you heard from all the glamorous side of things, like riding jet skis and, driving tenders and going scuba diving and traveling through the Caribbean. How did the reality hit you in the face, or how was it? Because I know it's not all play, it's not all fun. There's, it can be a tough job.
Yeah, I 100% with what you're saying. It's not all glamour. It's not all glitz. And I think for me, I think one of the good things was I really knew almost nothing about this industry, but I knew that we would travel a lot, and that was kind of what got me through and got me interested in it. So when I got there, and they're suddenly like, "Hey, when we have guests aboard, someone's going to stand on the dock and maintain like security." I was like, "Oh, that's weird. I never knew that." And like, "Oh, someone's going to stay awake overnight to wash the boat and everything while people are asleep." Which in this case is you, right?
Yeah.
All these things, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like I never even thought about this. So there was a lot of the inner workings of the industry that I didn't understand. But I think one of the biggest things that I learned, and one of the things that I teach crew now, is that the hardest part of the job is the crew itself, dealing with so many different personalities, people that have different upbringing from you, different values from you. And suddenly someone that you may never even been friends with, you're going to be like maybe 13 hours a day, just, working together all the time. And that's one of the biggest and the biggest challenges, I think. And one of my old chief officers, he told us, he said, that's why we get paid the big bucks. Yes, it's because we take care of rich people, but it's because when push comes to shove and you're away from your family on holidays, and when you're tired and when you're stressed, you're still having to deal with these people that, like I said, you might have never been around anyway. So I think for me, the long hours and just getting used to different personalities, that was probably the biggest surprise and the biggest challenge, even now as a leader as well.
Yeah. Is there anyone along the way that really helped you get better, within the yachting industry, or apart from your friend maybe that told you about the industry in the first place? Because that was kind of the time when you thought, oh, maybe there's a path there. But afterward, is there anyone that really helped you, and what did they do to help you really to succeed or to continue within the industry?
One of the difficult things in yachting is, like you said, that it can be hard to get a mentor. It can be hard to get people that push you up, just because we're all so busy. We're trying to, meet very outrageous demands at all times of the day. Sometimes it's just, there's not enough time in the day to actually train. And that's one of the things that I try to help people with now as well. But while I was coming up, I remember when I was bosun, I had a really good second officer. He would take us up into the bridge every week, and he'd kind of give us homework. Like, okay, next week you're going to present on, this use of the radar. You're going to be presenting on this piece of equipment. You're going to do that. So even while, we were working and having our regular job, in order to make everyone just get more motivated and not just be like, oh, I'm just cleaning the boat again this week. It was really good to have that. And, he would always pull me up to the bridge. Hey, we're doing chart corrections now. We're going to be looking at, where we're going to be traveling next month. Let's start playing around with this, doing the passage plan. And that was really good for me, because up until that point, I had only been doing the exterior, right? Managing a team of 6 people, washing, doing all the operations. But he kind of showed me, this is what it's like in the bridge, and this is what you need to start getting your licenses to. And he would take time, and he would help point me in the direction of, this is the courses that you need to do. This is when you should start doing them. He kind of helped me start doing career planning. And he was really one of the first people. His name was Minus. He had come from commercial shipping and working on like really big cargo ships, and he came to yachts. And that's also a really good path for some people, because you come in and you have so much knowledge and experience on actually the boating side, and you just have to learn the yacht side. So anyway, he was able to teach me a lot about regulations, legal requirements, all this kind of stuff. And that really motivated me to want to go get my officers. And then I also had other captains along the way that, again, they were very professional, helped pull me along, helped show me, hey, this is the next license that you should be getting. So I kind of had a few people at the right time that helped me go quickly into my officer's tickets and then into my captain's tickets.
Yeah. Do you feel like this kind of fueled the way toward SuperYacht Sunday School? Because now you're kind of helping people to get into the industry, and maybe this is like, your time to give back.
I think all these people and many of the people that I met in yachting are what helped kind of put SuperYacht Sunday School into play, because I felt it. I felt that, hey, if I didn't have these certain people that touched my life at these points, I wouldn't have been as motivated, or maybe it would have taken me a lot longer. And I've met a lot of deck crew in the industry that, and no offense to it, but they've been in the industry, let's say 5 years, 7 years, and then they still don't have any licenses, or they're still not looking for ways to both improve their salaries or just move up. And I know that not everyone needs to be a captain, that's for sure. But, while you're in this industry, we want to maximize the amount of money we're making, the amount of time we're having off. Like, we want to make sure that we're making some kind of impact. So that's what I want with SuperYacht Sunday School, is to kind of take that experience that I have, which now looking at everyone, I can tell that not everyone is that lucky in yachting. Not everyone has the mentors that I had. But now let me put that together in in a really easy to use way. And also with the internet and with, community, there's so many ways to make it a lot better than before. Because that's the thing in yachting too. Sometimes you're on a boat with 9, 10 people, and that's your whole world. You don't know that there's anyone outside. So if you suddenly are seeing people all over and you're connecting and learning from people all over the world, I think it's a lot more engaging, and it drives you a lot more.
Yeah. What's as you're saying that, I'm just thinking, what's the one thing you would tell people that want to break into the industry? If you can only tell them, give them like one advice. Because I know I have my own. I know I spent 17, 18 years on yachts, and there's one thing that I wish I knew, which was, about saving your money, basically, or investing, or like being careful that, it's good money. It can be good money, but sometimes it doesn't last, and sometimes it's just seasonal job, and sometimes there's like a few months in between jobs, and you gotta, you still gotta pay your bills. So I wish someone would have like told me from the start, Chris, you gotta, take care of the money, because it's not unlimited.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something that screams true to all of us, even me, the money for sure. I think on a similar note, but in a different way, because once you're in the industry, I think it's really important. Save your money, plan when you want to get courses and all that, because that's not expensive. Like, it's very easy to, after the holiday, after the courses, you still look at your bank account like, shit, I don't have anything. But even before you get into the industry, it's also really tempting to spend a shit ton of money on a bunch of licenses and all this stuff before you even know if you like it, right?
Yeah.
Some people are lucky enough to be really close to a hub, right? They're European, they can easily get to Antibes. Some people are American, they're very easy to get to Florida. Get the basics and then go and figure out if you like it, right? Like, obviously, while you're preparing, working in hospitality, working in bars, working on boats, there's so many things that actually are really, really good experience. There's a lot of people that I talk to that they have way better experience than I did. I had sat in an office, and then I sat in a manufacturing facility, like limited. But I had also worked in a restaurant, so I really touched that up on my CV. But for a lot of people, hey, before you go down this path of spending thousands and thousands of dollars on all these courses, get the basics and just get over there and see if you like it. Because there's a huge amount of yachties that they start in their first year. They decide, hey, I don't like this. It's not for me. And they decide to go home. And if you only were earning for a few months and you were looking for work, and then you spent $5,000 on courses as well, like, you're going to walk away with it, maybe even a net negative, because you also spent on accommodation, you spent on flights.
Yeah.
So just get what you need and then go see if you like it. Because for a lot of people, that's going to be a big eye opener. They might just say, I don't like this shit.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I had a couple of friends that I worked with in restaurants, and I did help them get their first job. And for me, it was like, there you go. This is awesome, because I've done it for a few years. And then they did one season, and they were like, nah, not for me. Because you don't go home at night, even the money is good, but you're like, you live a life that is very isolated. Like you say, you spend your time with the whole crew, and you spend your time sometimes at anchor, or the season can be very long. And there's no switch off button. You're always at work, so it's not for everyone.
Yeah, and I think, I know you only said for one piece of advice. My second piece of advice too is just be really careful about what yacht you choose, because sometimes people get really desperate and they accept jobs that are way underpaid, or conditions that you normally, you're like, wow, I'm going to be the cook, stew, captain, chef. Like, they take these jobs where they're getting paid nothing to do 4 or 5 jobs. And they're like, oh, it's okay, I'm just going to do it for one season. And thankfully, if it doesn't go bad, and that to the point that you have to quit, by the time you get at the end of that year, you're going to be so exhausted and over yachting that you're probably going to quit anyway. So you're going to go, man, I took less money. I took a less nice of a position. I took all these sacrifices, and I didn't even get to see what yachting was before I'm burnt out. I don't want to do it. So yeah. I think really be selective of that first job, because that first job sets the pace for what you're going to get later.
Yeah. You're right. Was there any time that you felt like you took the wrong job?
Yeah, I've taken the wrong job before. I think we all have. Thankfully, just not at the beginning of my career. That first job was a really good one. It was a deckhand on a 50 meter. And, I learned a lot, had good people. But, I mean, I've taken jobs. I remember taking a 45 meter chief position with my girlfriend. And that was the captain was probably not fit for duty, as you'd think. He was falling asleep at the wheel. He was very, very difficult to get along with. Personality wise, he would snap at people, but not just that, the boat was a Turkish build, and it was older, so it had a lot of problems. So we're also trying to charter immediately, like getting out of the shipyard with a new crew. And like, there were so many things that was rushed. And that beginning of
So
that
many red
season was just
flags.
terrible. Yeah, so many red flags. I mean, the fire alarm's going off all the time. The captain's not fit for duty. The people that are on board are very inexperienced. So it's just like this combination. It was just a really, really bad situation. But again, sometimes like, oh, the money's good, chief and chief, so I get to be with my partner. You start making these compromises, and then later, like, I should have just looked at the writing on the wall.
On the form, Hugo, you wrote, "Don't give up and don't let anyone scare you off." Did anyone scare you off? Did anyone say, "Hey, Hugo, this is not for you"?
Yeah, actually, when I finished my first yacht, like I'd done eight months on there. They were about to do their next season. They were going to go to Egypt and do a bunch of diving, and they needed a deckhand that had more dive experience. So that was when I parted ways with that first yacht. But not to slander anyone, but going through that boat, it was a huge eye-opening learning experience. I learned so much. I started off as someone that couldn't even tie any knot, to getting to the point where I was able to drop the anchors, and I was on the bow handling us med mooring and so many things. Like, I was really proud of what I had accomplished. But there was the captain had ended up, he was basically cleaning house slowly, one person by one person. And when we had our departure meeting, right, when I got the boot and I got off the yacht, he said, "Oh, maybe this yachting thing isn't for you." And I remember that sticking with me, because I was like, yo, 6 months ago, you were like, yo, you're the perfect person for this industry. And now you're saying this. So thankfully, I've always been someone with strong character. So I kind of like brushed it off. But I remember also during COVID, so this is now, I don't know, 6 years in at this point, I'm having a conversation with one captain as I'm leaving as second officer. And again, this guy, like many captains in the industry, unfortunately, is pretty cooked. And when he says, when we're departing and everything, he says something similar. He's like, "Oh, maybe this industry is not for you." And I was just like, "Yeah, no, this industry is for me. It's you that's not for me." Because this captain was known to do a lot of mind games, man. And whenever people would leave, he tried to make it feel like you were at the loss. So anyway, I vowed after that conversation, I was like, man, I'm never going to let people like that tell me what's good or not for my life. Like, I've done this for 6 years. I've seen people that are in this industry. I've passed my licenses at this point. I was like, this is for me. But I know that a lot of people, they have those influences from people like that, and they do sit back and go, oh, maybe this isn't for me. And they get completely sold off of something that maybe that they were going to have a huge career in, or even maybe not that, but at least they can keep doing it as long as they want. They shouldn't stop just because someone tells them. So that's a big thing for me, because I don't come from boating. I don't come from yachting. I mean, I spent some time around the water. I lived in Orlando, which is Central Florida, but a lot of lakes. I lived in New York, which obviously has water, but very limited time out there. So I always say that I'm one of the people that I least expect to be doing this, or that least has a reason to be doing this. And if I can do it, and if I can do it well, then I have faith that a lot of people can do it too.
Yeah. And how is it to be a captain, Hugo?
Again,
big change from being a deckhand to being a captain, right? Do you feel like you kind of understand some of your first captains?
I think being in that position of captain, you suddenly, it's probably like being a parent. You suddenly look back and you're like, oh, that's what mom and dad were talking about. Yeah. So yeah, you start seeing that it's not about being perfect all the time, or even making the perfect decisions, but sometimes it's just about being that person in charge that makes a call and everyone else has to follow. So sometimes when we're a deckhand, you don't see, and you're like, I don't understand, why is it? But then now being in that position, suddenly a lot of things made sense. But it's a great position to be in. But I think what I've learned, it's really funny, is there's always someone above you, right? So you think, oh, when I'm captain, I'm going to be in charge of everything. It's going to be like this. It's going to be like this. And yes, for operations, yeah, you do run how you want the boat for the most part. But suddenly now you have management. Now you have the broker. Now you have the owner. And all these people that are sending information down. And sometimes it does feel like, oh, shit, like I'm nowhere near in charge. Like there's still so many levels above this. And I think that's a really funny realization. I mean, it comes with its own struggles, its own challenges. It's obviously, I'm not saying that, oh, you have more pressure than you did as a deckhand. Like, of course, you have more freedom and all of that. But it's just funny to see that everyone's always got a boss. There's always someone above you. And that's been really funny to see. And also, I always joke, there's also like the 80-20 principle. I don't know if you're familiar with the Pareto principle, that, 80% of the time you spend doing like what brings the smallest results like when at first. So anyway, I feel like you spend 20% of the time driving the yacht and 80% of the time doing administration for the yacht. And when you imagine the captain position, you think it's going to be the reverse. You're like, I'm going to be driving all the time and it's going to be great, maybe doing a little bit of paperwork and then go home. But it's actually flipped. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. And there's also this thing with when you manage people and when you're actually on the bottom and you look up, that you don't realize how difficult it is to manage people and to take decision and to also simply say no. And you always think it's, not always, but you often, when you're on the bottom, you always think that it's unfair. And, why is it not like that? And why? And then one day you become, the captain, or you become on top, the leader, and you realize, it's also not easy to take this decision. So this is something you realize as well as a captain.
Yeah, I think dealing with people, like I was saying before, that's always the hardest part of the job and the one we don't expect the most. So sometimes you think that like we're talking about, like, oh, okay, I'm captain, we're gonna be talking about operations, doing this, we're gonna get off the dock, we're gonna go. But that, again, that's such a small part of the job. A lot of times it's listening to people, why they're not getting along with their crewmates, why they're not getting along with their HOD, or maybe the HOD is talking about them. How do I help inspire these people to work better? Or I'm not getting what I want. And suddenly it's all this interpersonal relationship game. And you realize that it's hard to get the best out of people, or as much as you can all the time, and trying to make them feel heard and valued, and how that all plays into the operation. And that's actually quite hard. It's good though. It's another challenge, right? At the beginning, like we're talking about when you're a deckhand, the challenge is learning how to wash and polish and keep this boat clean all the time. And then it's driving the smaller boats, and then it's doing the guest service and taking them out on excursions. And there's always that next level. And now at the captain's level, yes, it's always continuing to make the yacht run well, but it's getting better and better at managing people, because the quicker you can do that, then you can start getting bigger and bigger teams, and you're just getting better and better performance. So it's been nice. It's been nice to have to learn that side as well.
Yeah, there's always something to learn, especially in yachting, and especially I'm sure with your tickets as a captain, it's always something new coming up, and you need to refresh your licenses, and there's always something else you can learn, I guess. And like you say, also it's not just about the licenses; it's also the human side of the equation, which is, it can be difficult, but it's I think it's a very interesting thing to do. Hugo, are you able to swim now?
I am able to swim now. So when I was getting into yachting, that was one of my blocks. I was like, oh shit, I didn't really formally learn how to swim. And I remember the guy who got me into yachting, he took me and we got scuba certified, and he also taught me how to swim. And that was kind of like my first course.
So hang on. Did you go scuba diving before you learned how to swim?
Yes. Well, I kind of did them at the same time, but yeah, I did.
Well, to be honest, it's a little bit easier because you've got the vest, and you got all this that kind of help you float. So I suppose you don't technically need to swim once you've got a scuba gear on.
Yeah, I mean, I probably did it backwards, to be fair. I should have done one before the other one. But he was like, no, you don't need to swim to do scuba. And I was like, how? Okay. We're going to be 30 meters underwater. But I trusted him. And we ended up doing both at the same time, because for scuba is similar to your STCW, that you have to be able to float in the pool or at least doggy paddle for a few minutes. But that was the problem. That I can do. I just was like, what if I'm at sea? I'm going to have to swim all this stuff. And then you slowly figure out, well, if you're at sea far from the boat with nothing, then you're in a really bad situation. We're trying to avoid that from ever happening. But still,
no matter if you're the best swimmer, it doesn't matter. Like, you're still not going to catch up on the boat if you're on a crossing and you just fell off.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a little bit of a mental game, but I'm a much better swimmer now than before. I remember also my first yacht, the mate wrote me down as the rescue swimmer on the muster plan. So in an emergency, I was supposed to be the one that runs out, swims out with the boy, brings someone back. And I think shortly after he made me do that a couple of times, he's like, "Are you confident in swimming?" I was like, "Look, I'll do whatever you want, but no, I'm not." And that was, again, something I had to climb up with him.
But it's a good point, Hugo. Do you remember because did you have your STCW when you started on the boat?
Correct, I did, yeah.
Okay, because I can't remember. Do they actually check if we can swim on the STCW, or they just put it in with the immersion suit and the life jacket, and then off you go in the pool? I can't remember if they actually checked the basic, which is can you swim?
So what they do for most of these SCCWs is they'll put you at the end of the pool and they just turn on the timer. And basically, as long as you don't drown within, I think I've seen some of them do between 1 and 5 minutes. I can't remember how much it was, but basically, it doesn't really test if you can swim. It just tests if you can, survive
Float.
in that amount of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So if you can float, if you can just do a few paddles or whatever, that's fine. So I was still able to do that. That was okay. I couldn't. I always thought that everyone was going to be very experienced in swimming, like we were going to be doing Olympic laps around the yacht or something like that. But still, at the beginning, when I would have to swim with the guests and be off the back of the boat, that was still a learning experience to be able to do that for so long. And I was very uncomfortable with it at first, and I thankfully got more and more comfortable.
That's awesome. All right, Hugo. SuperYacht Sunday School. Tell me, why? Where is this coming from? And who is this for?
So SuperYacht Sunday School was something I thought up with my partner back when it was COVID. I remember sitting there, and I was in Netherlands. It was really, really cold. It was about November. I was in one of the shipyards on the yacht that I was working on. And I was thinking, man, one, it's really, really cold and I don't want to be here. But two, everyone around the world is working online. And this is probably the one time that I'm kind of jealous because everyone can work from anywhere in the world. And I can work from anywhere in the world as long as there's a yacht there. So I kind of was like, I want to progress to having that kind of freedom as well. And as you know, working in yachting, it can be common to have like a rotational schedule where you work part of the time on the yacht, part of the time at home. And I was trying to basically construct a life. I was like, I'd love to spend time still on yachts. Like I still love it, but I want to be able to then be more location independent. So I started thinking about, what do I know? What can I do online? And I started thinking up a lot of different things. There's no shortage of ideas if you just Google how to make money online. But I wanted to do something that impacted people, and I wanted to do something with, what I've learned so far. So I knew it had to be yachting. So then I kind of saw that there was an opening in my market. I have a lot of technical experience. I've got a lot of like a love for really educating and training. That's something I've done. Even in college, I was a tutor. I helped, I've taught people English. I did that before while I was backpacking. So I've always loved teaching. Yeah. And I feel like I'm in this interesting position where I do this job that a lot of people, maybe they know about now because of the TV show, but a lot of people still don't know how to do it, or they feel like they can't do it. So I thought, hey, I'd love to start showing people how to get into yachting, but not just that. Like my ultimate goal is to take and connect the industry, because it's like I was mentioning, it's so disconnected. There's yachts here, there's yachts there, there's Facebook group here, there's Facebook group there. But I'd love to create a universal hub where people can come, they can meet, they can learn about different things. Maybe it's not just how to get into yachting. Maybe it's the proper way to paint, how to sand, like all these things that I felt like I had to learn that I didn't have any background in. And I know there's more people like they're out there, and when I'm on board, I love training the deckhands, show them how to paint and everything, but that's like a one-to-one relationship. I was like, I want to reach a lot more people at once. And that was kind of how I started putting together SuperYacht Sunday School. So it's for, ultimately my vision, it's for yachties by yachties. It's this place that you'll be able to come, meet people, and learn all the skills that we want to be the best yachties, but that maybe there's no training for. The soft skills related to dealing with guests, from that all the way to the hard skills like carpentry and painting. And obviously for interior and hopefully one day chefs too. But, I've got to start at one place. And this is where I started, kind of helping people get into the industry and giving them those roadblocks and a little bit of career guidance.
So under what format are you establishing SuperYacht Sunday School? Is this a mentorship program? Is this online education? Is it how does it work? If let's say I just want to get into the industry, I know nothing about it. I just know, like you said, like yourself, my friend told me, you're going to make good money, so you should do that, and you're going to travel the world, which is, what attracted me first. What do I get if I get in touch with you guys at SuperYacht Sunday School?
So the beginning, it's like you mentioned, it starts out as a kind of a coaching mentorship kind of program. So it has a lot of touch points with me, because I know the hardest thing at the beginning is you want someone to answer all of your questions that's going to be there that you can talk to, because that's really, really valuable at first. So that's kind of how it's structured. There's multiple calls you get with me. We go from everything at the beginning, from setting up what positions do you want to do? Is this right for you? Where are you going to go? Like basically putting together timelines and basically practical steps on what you need to do from where you are to before you relocate. Then there's also modules where we do CVs. So I teach you everything of how you need to put that thing together. And then we go back and forth. You're submitting it to me. I'm saying, hey, fix this, change that. That looks okay. That photo's not okay. And we basically just keep going back and forth. Because again, one of the most difficult parts is people go and they start putting things on a CV, but they don't know if that looks good or if that looks competitive. So since I've seen so many, since I hire crew also all the time, I can kind of guide them in real time. So we go back and forth doing that. And for some crew, it's really case by case, but some crew I look and I'm like, man, you have almost no relevant experience. These are jobs that you should probably look at doing between now and then, whether it's working at a restaurant, working in a bar. I've had one guy, he was IT, and we got him to do some like sailing deliveries because all he had ever done was being on a computer, and he was in Europe. So he did some sailing deliveries, and that made his CV more competitive. So again, I go back and forth and kind of help you plan what you're doing at that moment and prepare flights, visas. We make sure everything's covered before you finally go. And then once you're there, I also have all the tools and everything to connect you to people. So basically, everyone wants to know, what are all the Facebook groups? I have like stuff like that. What are all the WhatsApp groups? Like all those technical things in places where they're going to be applying. I show them how to be applying to these places. I show them how to write emails. What should they say to recruiters, right? Like I kind of walk them through everything. We do mock interviews. So then again, when you get to the actual interview, I've already asked you those questions and given you scores and told you, look, what you're suffering in, you're really not good at talking about this thing on your CV. Like work that out. You're really not good at talking about what's your 5-year plan, right? Like I just basically coach people through the whole process. And then ultimately, with even some people, because I also do recruitment, sometimes I can even link you up with people that are looking for people. And that's been really nice to basically take one person all the way through. But if not, take them all the way through and then help them applying to work. Like when people are out in the field, a lot of time, hey, Hugo, can you look at this email I'm sending again? I'm not getting results from it. Hey, the chief officer sent me this message. What should I say back? Right. So again, helping them through that, and then they get into the industry. So I do a lot of one-on-one, but all of it's through, I have like a community and an app. It's very similar to like Circle and some of these platforms. So it's a social platform. People can ask questions. I respond. Like I said, we do reviews of their CV, emails, all that kind of stuff. And also we do monthly calls. So every month, anyone who's in the program, even if they're already on a yacht, they come in and they're like, hey, I've got questions about this now. And people are just kind of going back and forth. And it's really cool because you get people that are all the way at the beginning of the journey saying, hey, I'm not sure what position should I be in. And on that same call, you've got someone on a yacht that's going, hey, I had this incident happen with crew. How would you go about it? And I think for a lot of people, it motivates them because they can see the whole journey right there in front of them. They're like, oh, okay, I'm motivated. I want to keep going. Yeah.
Okay. So how long is the program lasting? Is it a yearly membership? Is it a 6 month? Is it a monthly? How does it work?
So it's one of two plans. You can either do a one-time payment and then you get access and you come in. Most people do it for about 6 to 12 months. So, right. So they buy it, they have access for it. They do whatever they want. Or other people, maybe if they want to have a little bit more like financial freedom, they'll book it on like a monthly installment plan, but then it's still for 12 months. It's basically pay it once or pay it over 12 months. And most people go about it like 6 to 12 months. That's about from when someone enters, they're usually looking at the next season. So someone will usually come in, let's say October, and they're like, okay, winter's too close. I'm going for summer or something like that. So that's usually what we're working together for like 6 to 9 months. But I also have people that they decide, oh, I'm going to do it. They get excited. And then life happens. And then it's like a year later and they come back and it's like, hey, no worries. I'm still here. Let's do it.
Awesome. You mentioned you were asking what's your 5 years plan. What is your 5-year plan with SuperYacht Sunday School?
That's a really good point. So for me, my 5-year plan, it's always changing if you ask me, but I want to keep growing SuperYacht Sunday School and I want to move more into what I was saying. So instead of just focusing on people at the beginning, I do want to have nice modules and courses broken out for people that are on deck, for people that are stews, for people that are engineers, on everything from, hey, let's break down, and this is the proper way for, let's say, an engineer, like replacing fluids and doing work on a generator, or for a deckhand.
More technical.
More technical stuff. For a deckhand, this is how to paint. This is the proper way to varnish, right? And having tutorials on all of that. Because right now I'm kind of guiding you on all the administrative, right? How to get in, how to get better licenses, looking at your CV. But I would want to move into then having the rest of the school be more of the technical side and showing you how to do your job better. Having even courses on, maybe like mild like leadership stuff, but also how to deal and interact with guests, right? Because 7-star service isn't the same as just standing at a McDonald's and talking to someone. Like there's a certain amount of professionalism, and for some people that's harder to learn. So also I want to have more on that. And I'm doing recruitment now at the same time, so I want to grow that to be much bigger and better, right? Help connect people to yachts that they want to work on. And my plan would be someone at the beginning. I have so many touch points with them that I get to know these people quite well. So being able to pick someone at the beginning, walk them through the journey, and then help put them where I think they're going to belong most would be, that would be the goal for sure.
Yeah.
And after that, I love tech and I love ideas. I'm always thinking of different things I want to do to just keep making the industry better. Because I think SuperYacht Sunday School, it's a learning platform, it's a training platform, it's a community. But I want it to just be also ultimately that I take tech and I want to help improve the industry and however I can find the way. So whether that's, in terms of how you book your accommodation or in terms of anything, like I just want to use tech to connect people in the easiest way. Because I think our industry is very interesting because there's so much money flying around. But in terms of the cruise side, it's quite behind a lot of industries. Like even how we're applying to jobs is quite behind how a lot of industries do it nowadays. So we're not really using tech to its full potential. So I want to just help facilitate that because I see there's an opening for that.
Yeah, I agree. Also, the management, not in terms of people, but the management of stock and just the way we have systems, and we barely have. I mean, I guess on the engineer side, we have more SOPs and maybe on the bridge, but I mean the rest of the yacht, the environment is lacking SOPs and systems that you can actually go back to. That is, it would help people to navigate, like you said, and to know how to do things. And perhaps this is what you can bring as well when you say like you have one-on-ones and you have more technical stuff that you can bring to them later on with your system. So that's definitely a good idea, and I can see the need, and I can see that it could be very, very valuable. Hugo, why Sunday school? Do you feel like yachting is a religion, or?
I actually don't get that question as much as I would think. So I'll
You're
tell you
welcome.
the long story. Yeah, thank you. I'll tell you the long story and the short story. So I grew up in a pretty religious home, so a pretty Christian home. So I know the concept of Sunday school, and I think it's interesting. The idea behind it originally is Sunday school is something, it's extra, right? You already went to school Monday through Friday. You already learned whatever you're supposed to learn. This is where you're kind of getting extra, and it's supposed to, whether spiritually, it's supposed to help you be a better person, but ultimately it's supposed to give you more than what the normal person is doing. So with SuperYacht Sunday School, the idea is that, it's not one of these mandatory certified classes. It's not, your SCCW. It's not one of these things that everyone is already having to do. It's extra. It's that extra bit to show that, hey, I want to be more learned. I want to be more competitive. I want to do more than just where everyone's stopping at the bare minimum. So that's kind of where that idea comes from. I also, at the time, I'm a big fan of Kanye West, and he had his Sunday service. Yeah. I was like, well, if Kanye West can have Sunday service, so I can have Sunday school, But again, it's that idea of learning more than what's required. Because I'm all about that. It's about doing, that extra 10%. It's not about just doing what the bare minimum is. Because there's a lot of people that get into yachting, or they try to get into yachting. They come, they relocate, they start throwing their CV, they party too much. We already know the story. They don't find a job, and they're like, man, why didn't I find a job? I was so close, right? I did everything that everyone else did. And that goes back to that whole Sunday school concept. Well, if you would have put in another 10%, if you would have drank a little bit less, if you would have looked at your CV and given a second proofread, if you would have done all those things that I would have, that Sunday school would teach you, that's when you start seeing movement. That's when you can actually break free of what everyone else is doing. Because it's not always easy. For some people, yeah, they find a job pretty quickly. But for some other people that, like I said, like me, that didn't get that wasn't from boating, didn't have boating experience, barely knew how to swim. Like I had all these factors working against me, but thankfully I had someone that was already in the industry that looked through my CV. I had another person telling me, take this class, take this class, take this class. Go do this, do this, do this, talk to people like this. So like, because I had those little touches, even someone like me that didn't belong on the boat was able to get onto the yacht within 2 weeks. And that's what I want people to see, that if you're willing to put in the effort, if you're willing to go to Sunday school, it will make a difference. I'm not promising you 1 week versus 2 weeks or whatever, but I know for a fact you will get a job faster than if you hadn't played around, with us. If you will do everything better than if you had never had the instruction.
Yeah. And sometimes all you need is also a little bit of feedback. Like you mentioned a few times, take a look at my CV and tell me if something is right or wrong. I get some chefs that ask me sometimes to do that. And I really like doing that because I feel like they get, someone to have a look at their CV that is not, it's not biased. I'm not trying to hire you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to be brutally sometimes honest about
Yeah.
what I think you should have and you shouldn't have. And I, I don't know. Some people don't want to hear it, but some people, when they
Mm-hmm.
ask for it, it's great to have a place where they could go and say, "Look, can you just give me some feedback? Because I really want to get onto the boat." And there's also a lot of people that want to get on boats. There's other that are lucky to have a job, and maybe sometimes they're not, careful or they're not working to their full potential. So, I'm very happy that there's another place, like with you, where people can just send a CV and say like, can you please help me and tell me what I should have on or what I shouldn't have, because it's
Yeah.
sometimes this is the only thing that separates you from getting a job from the captain and the candidate is the only piece of paper, which is like you say, a very old school system. But it still is, even if it's a PDF, if it's online, it's still just a 1-page or 2-page document that separates you from a potential job. So it's super valuable. So I'm glad you're doing it as well.
Thanks, man. And it's like you said, like we were talking earlier in the position of captain. Like sometimes it's just having that personal touch, right? Because again, like people can look online, people can do a lot of things. They can look up how to do a CV. There's so many things that people can do, but having that personal connection is sometimes it's so valuable. And everyone has a different piece that they like. Some people it's the CV
Yeah.
review. That's what sets it apart. For some people, it's making that roadmap of what they need. But I've even had crew, they're sitting there, they're struggling to make ends meet. They got a day work here, then it goes a week. They find a few days here, and they're just on that edge. And they're like, Hugo, I don't know if I can do this, man. I think I'm gonna go home. And I'm like, no, that's exactly the point where I talk them off the ledge. And I'm like, if you just stick at it, I promise you it's gonna come. And I can't tell you how many people after that conversation, maybe it's a couple days later, a week later, they find a job and they're like, man, thank you so much for just telling me that it was coming, right? Like that conversation kept me in the game. And it just goes back to like everyone needs a different touch. And for a lot of people, they just need someone behind. Sometimes I'm just a cheerleader. Like, you can do it, you can do it. Because I've seen so many people go through, so I can see the candidate, I see the CV, the personality. I'm like, no, that like you would be making a huge mistake if you leave. And it's been really fulfilling for me to be able to be in that position and help that way too.
Yeah. Do you wanna keep the all the operation online, or do you feel like maybe one day there'll be an actual school somewhere?
That's a really good question because ultimately I would like to at some point do things in person. It would be probably a different set of courses and a different set of skills. I'd have to look. I do love the fact of online. You have so many people you can help, and it's really really easy
It's
to reach a
convenient.
lot of
Yeah.
people. It's convenient too. So that part will always be there, and that part will continue to progress. But there will be something at least in some of the yachting hubs, right? Because I'm not going to say I'm going to put something worldwide, but it's easy because our industry, we at least know there's three. Well, there's more now, but there's three locations that everyone's going through. So setting something up in one of those, a small branch, that would make sense. Right now, at like the solopreneur level, it doesn't make financial sense to do that. And I think there's a lot of waste too that comes. Sometimes opening a center and just sticking classes in just for the sake of doing it ends up hurting crew, right? That's also why I got into this, because there's too many centers that opened up just throwing courses out there and saying, hey, you need this, you need this, you need this. So I'm very careful because I don't want to fall down that rabbit hole, but I do want to do more one-on-one and personal stuff as well.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a course in the industry today that is not needed? Because I know my question is connected to the chef world, because as you know, maybe 10, maybe more, a little while ago, they started asking for the ship's cook certificate for chefs
Mm-hmm.
cooking on boats over 10 people over 45 meters, commercially registered. There's different reason to ask for it on a boat. And there was a lot of tension from the chef side saying, look,
Mm-hmm.
I've worked in restaurant for 20 years. I did my culinary degree. I spent 2, 4, 6 years in school to learn how to cook, and now you're asking me to get that ticket, which is like, why? Like I can prove that I worked and I can do the job, and I'm qualified for it. So is there
Right, right.
anything on your side that you see that is not necessary, or do you feel like there should be more courses, or is there anything that you feel like people should know? Like how to swim, or one of these different skills?
How to swim would be good. How to swim would be a good thing to check. Look, I think there's a lot of courses, and there's a lot of courses on different platforms, and the big thing for me right now isn't so much like, hey, this course is I would take it immediately off the menu. But the problem is that there's a lot of courses that are floating around, let's say like the how to be a deckhand, how to be different stew things, and a lot of them they're not following the same rubric, right? Like there's a school in South Africa doing it like this, another school in South Africa doing it like that, there's a school in America doing it like this. I don't have any problem with their existing and being a really great and well thought out how to be a deckhand course, or like how to be a stew. If someone wants to take that up at the top level and design that and require it by the MCA, that's aside from them. But the problem is that there's too much room at the bottom for people to just whip something out. And I talk to people time and time again that come out of those courses and they're like, man, I was wasting money. I spent like 30 minutes looking at laundry. Like, what can I learn in 30 minutes? So that's what I think is pointless, right? But even more so than that, that's okay. You can say, look, I paid almost $2,000. I got an overview, whatever, fine. But a lot of schools, they'll do a bundle where it's like, hey, if you want to be a super yacht deck stew, you have to take these courses. And it'll be like the stew course and the tender driving course and some other course. And then they get, as the list gets longer, they get more out there. By the last course, you're looking at, radar observer. Man, I didn't take a radar course until I was an officer 3.5 years into the industry. And you're telling a deck stew that she has to have a radar observer course. So it's not that the radar course is bad. It's that why is this a $5,000 bill? Why are we promoting this as mandatory? And you look at, they're very careful about how they word it, but they basically make you feel like you need to do it. And a lot of the students that work with me, they go, yeah, I called in for the STCW, and they try to up-level me to all these other courses. And I'm like, no.
Upselling.
Yeah. So there's a lot of upselling. And that's what I don't like. I don't mind. I'm all about learning, and I even learn like we're talking about. I like to learn more than is needed of me. And if someone wants to do that, that's fine. If they want to go to a radar course, do it. But you can't prey on people that are at the very beginning of their journey and saying like, hey, this is what you need to do if you want to be competitive. Meanwhile, no one talks to them about their CV. Some of these people don't even know what cities to go to afterwards. Like there's so much lack of education, which is good for me. That's why I exist. But it's just, we can't take advantage that badly of the people at the beginning, because yes, we get quick money. You think everyone wins, but then this industry suffers. Those people don't end up getting into yachting. Maybe they don't find a job the first season and they don't have the funds to keep going. That's a lost customer. Maybe that was the officer of tomorrow. Maybe that was the chief stew of tomorrow. They're gone now. And it just gets a bad name, because then when I go for my next courses, I'm not going to go to that school because they already ruined the relationship with me. So like there's a lot of sales tactics that are being employed that aren't that great, and I don't think they're necessarily great for business or great for the industry.
Yeah, I understand. Do you want to keep working on both, or is the goal for the next few years to keep doing SuperYacht Sunday School and kind of step away or step aside from the industry?
The last 2 years, I stepped away from the industry pretty fully to do SuperYacht Sunday School, to get it off the ground. I did a little bit of temp assignments there. And I'm in an interesting point now, because I have the system and a lot of it's already built. So it is easier for me to do some temporary work and, deliveries and that kind of work. At the moment, I don't see myself going back full time, just because, I think when you have two masters, it's hard to pick which one to serve. I think I don't have enough bandwidth to do both 100%. But doing, temporary assignments, doing deliveries, I love yachting and I love doing the work that we do and the traveling to the places we go. And, it's nice being on these big, nice boats out on the water. It's great. So I do want to keep that alive. And that also keeps my licenses in check. Like right now I have to renew a few of my officer and my chief mate licenses. And then I just renewed some of my captain licenses. So I do need sea time for that. So that forever is always going to be involved. But I do want to focus, the majority of my focus is SuperYacht Sunday School and figuring out how to keep growing that and how to work with that, because I feel like I owe it to that, and I've invested so much that's what I want to do. So I do want to keep yachting around, but my main focus is SuperYacht Sunday School.
Yeah, awesome. Is there anything you want to promote? Anything you're launching soon?
At the moment, no. I'm going to start doubling down on our YouTube channel and just going more into our video formats, both vertical and horizontal. So stay tuned for that. That's what's on the agenda for this year. To really, we've grown primarily, let's say, on Instagram was basically the last couple of years, and in the last 6 months, I've been growing on Facebook. Also, like I was saying, YouTube now. We're going to get into the TikTok world. So just going to have more coverage on more of the formats. So that's my goal for 2025.
Awesome. Hugo, thank you so much. As always, I'm gonna put website and all your links, social media and whatnot in the footnote. Thank you so much for taking the time. I didn't know a lot about SuperYacht Sunday School, and I'm still struggling to say it, but that's but I'm getting there. Hugo, thank you so much. I hope you had a good time. And anything else you want to add?
No, thank you so much, Chris. It's been a good pleasure, and I really appreciate you having me on here. I see that a lot of my yachting peers have gotten on here too, so I'm eager to see where this grows as well, because I know you're going to be talking to all different kind of luxury employees, which is cool, because on our side we rub shoulders sometimes with the pilot or the helicopter pilot, but it is this yachting bubble that we don't see so much of the other side. So
it's the idea. Cool. I mean, at the end, it's the same people we're serving, It's some of the most influential families around the world, like whether they have a boat or they have a residence or, they go on a jet. It's we all in the same industry. Like it's separated, but it's actually super connected.
Yeah, and I find that super interesting. So I'll be tuned in to hear more of that. And I'll also shoot you a link, because one of the things I have is this how to get into yacht or how to work on yachts masterclass. It's free. And I think if anyone's interested in working on a yacht, and if they're not sure, if they don't want to commit to, a one-on-one program, I think that's the perfect way to start. It's going to show you what you need to do, what are the basics, and also even like why so many people struggle to find work, because that's one of the big mysteries. Everyone's like, oh, but I went to the place, I have a CV. Why is the magic not happening? And it's like, okay, well, let's talk about what else you should be doing.
Yeah. Awesome. I will make sure to add that to the footnote. Thank you so much, Hugo.
Thank you so much too. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.